Hey there, Stu here. Today's video is about servicing the gate valve seacocks, taking apart the gearbox and the heat exchanger, and installing a new battery shelf in the trawler, and is proudly sponsored by marineengine.com. Alright, we'll start this video by getting into servicing the gate valves. Sunday now, and I've just been trying to get these valves open. This one's just started to budge, so what I've had is I had the heat gun just resting up here, heating the base as much as possible, and then occasionally spraying the top part, mostly to cool it rather than to try to lubricate it, although I'm sure it's doing both. And then using the two hammer technique of having a big hammer on one side as a sort of a stopper, and then just hitting around it with the smaller ball peen hammer. But it's finally coming. Was. Oh yeah, still is. Oh yeah. Looks like we're going to have to, actually probably get the whole thing up together. It looks like we're going to have to separate the handle from the body. I've never had one of these apart, so I really don't know what to expect. There we go. And this is what it looks like internally. Originally these were full of oyster shell and that kind of thing, and I soaked them in a big bucket of just cheap white vinegar, which dissolves the calcium carbonate, which is what the shells are made out of. So that was kind of first step on the service. I actually lost the footage of that, but it worked pretty well. It took a while, but you know, you're not doing any work. I just dumped them in a big bucket. I think it's about $1 for a couple of litres. So I bought like 5 packets of about 10 litres of vinegar and just dropped the entire valve in there, and it ate away all the shell. There's a bit of shell left inside. Obviously the vinegar didn't get right inside here, but we'll clean that off. And I presume there's some sort of you know, O-ring or something that stops water coming up the shaft of the handle. But we'll get it apart, clean it up, lubricate it, anti-seize, back together. Handle's pretty jammed. There we go. Of course, this isn't the toughest metal to get a bit physical with, but it'll live. To be honest with you, this looks a little bit like the other type of stern gland, where there might be a bit of packing in here. This is the stuffing box that pushes it down, and rather than the 3 bolts like I've got, some styles just have a whole collar, even on prop shafts, that just pull it down. So I think that's how these are sealed. Alright, let's find a pick or something and get that out. Looks like some sort of packing very similar to what we put in on the prop shaft. And then yeah, this is the bit here that pushes down against it by the force of this collar. I've just put this on the wire wheel to see if this section separates from here, and it looks like it does. I'm going to see if I can get this in the vise and then twist this backwards to undo it. All my big spanners and my shifter are at the boat. Everything I need when I'm at the boat is here, and everything I need when I'm here is at the boat. Anyway, no point complaining, we'll improvise. Alright. Wasn't too hard. This This is what it looks like in here now. So, reverse threaded, something we learnt. The field strip's complete. Now I know. Nothing too amazing about the way they work. So as you turn the handle, this is locked in place, so the thread turns relative to this and it pushes it down. Reasonably coarse reverse thread. Both inner and outer threads, male and female threads, look perfect, so that's great. It turns out that finding the valve stem packing for these gate valves is actually quite hard in Sydney. I asked around a few places, plumbing places, even online, even on eBay, it goes straight to international sellers. This is some packing here I bought for the prop shaft. The prop shaft actually takes 3/8 and this is some 5/16, so I don't need it. What I'm going to do is just try cutting it down and using it as a valve stem packing. It's the same stuff, just different dimensions. Alright, so step one anyway, we'll clean all these bits up on the wire wheel. Certainly these threads. A few bits of shell in some hard to reach places. I could soak the parts in vinegar again now that they're apart, but it's not a surface that rubs anywhere or does anything, so I'm not going to worry about it. This bit of packing came out pretty much in one piece, so you can see it's just spiraled round. It comes on a roll. I have actually ordered some, and you can get these caps off once the valves are in the boat, so I'll pack them with what I've got for now, get them in the boat. If they leak, you know, I can always upgrade it. Only a tiny bit of water will come in the boat when you undo them. Alright, let's have a shot at getting one of these back together. Got a bit of anti-seize here. I'd recommend copper-based anti-seize, given that this is bronze, I believe, which is mostly copper anyway. This one's nickel, but I think it'll be alright. I'm just going to put a little bit down the outside of the gate, just so it runs nicely inside that groove. So you can see there's the little grooves on the side and the little tabs on the gate. Get those lined up, and that drops in like that. Now I'm just going to put some anti-seize on the thread here, and then we'll wind it into the gate. The trick with these, of course, was that it was a reverse thread, so we're going to kind of wind it out to wind it in. Alright, then a top cap. I'll put a little bit more on the threads around here. Probably going to be easier to finish assembling this in the vise, I think. Alright, snug that up. Now, just wound this stem up to be a bit higher. A little bit of anti-seize on this part again, this collar. Totally wrong tool for the job, but it'll do. Now, I might even wind this up a bit further again. Alright. Because there's quite a lot of room for packing inside here, I've actually cut a flat section like this that I'm going to run round this way. The disadvantage to this is that you have a gap coming up, but we'll see. I do have the roll of the right stuff on the way where I can just lay it in and spiral it, which is clearly going to be the best way. But I'm going to experiment with this, give it a go. It's far from the end of the world. If it leaks a little bit, I'll just replace it. But I'll do this one this way, and I'll wait and I'll do the other one with the correct packing, provided it arrives in time, because it's coming from overseas. I'm actually going to try this. I've pushed it into the housing first, I'll slide it down, that might be a bit easier. I'll just put a little bit of grease on the outside of the shaft here that it seals against. I think every tube of marine grease I have is at the boat. Anyway. One day everything will be in the same place at the same time again. Okay, so down in there you can see our kind of homemade packing. It actually looks pretty good, to be honest with you. It'll be interesting to see how it works. So, packing's in, collar's tight. Now, this is the little sort of stuffing box equivalent. Once again, just going to put a little bit of anti-seize on these outside threads. Of course, it's after all this that I'll find out that nickel reacts really badly with bronze, and I'll have to take it apart and clean it and do it again, but never mind. So the more we tighten this one, the more it's going to compress that packing against the shaft. With the prop shaft, we need it dripping slightly because water cools it. In this case, it's not spinning, so it doesn't need to be cooled. So that's getting snug. I'm not going to crank it up because I think that'll actually just make it too hard to turn the handle. I'll pop this on for a test, but I'm actually going to clean this and respray the handles as well. One of the handles fell apart completely, it was rubbish. So I might actually see if I can even find some new handles just to be on the safe side. Just going to use a little impact socket extension to drive the handle on. Alright, and hopefully you can see in there now, gate going up. Gate going down. Alright, before we did that just wouldn't budge at all. I definitely think the vinegar soak was the important first step in that process, because whilst ever it was just full of shell, it was going to be really hard to take apart. So sorry I lost the footage of that, but I think you get the idea. Alright, I'll leave those there for now. Today a viewer named Joshua is coming back to the boat. Joshua helped make a battery tray from that sheet of high density polyethylene, and today we're going to sort of drill it, arrange the batteries on it and get that installed. Joshua also helped with some of the grinding and painting in the engine bay, so thank you a lot, Joshua. I really appreciate that. That's a job that no one wants to do, least of all me, and it was a big help to sort of push on with that. Trying to leave the house this morning, but my path is blocked. I don't know what to do. Good morning. Ooh, goodbye. Alright, we made it. It turned out to be a pretty cold and foggy trip up the river to go and meet Joshua, but eventually got there and we started installing the battery shelf that he had made the week before. Every bolt head ends up underneath one of the batteries, just about anyway, so we're going to recess the heads of the bolts so we can sit them flat and get it in. So I think it was right, yeah, 2 and then 3 across seemed to work the best, yeah.
What size drill bit?
Have a look at these, 8-ish. We've got our battery shelf in now, which is nice. Get the batteries out of the weather finally. I'll bring a battery charger up and I'll just put these on a trickle charge for a little while to get them going, but at least they're ready now to wire up for the electrical boards. With the battery boards, having made these, I've actually decided to put them inside the lazarette because it'll be cooler there, but also it's much more accessible than the engine bay. The engine bay has a big hatch that's hard to take off and it'll be under a table, where the lazarette has a small hatch, so when it comes to accessing fuses and whatever, that'll be much easier. This video is a little bit chaotic, unfortunately, because lots of different things happen and lots of it happen in really noisy spaces. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to head up to the workshop with Dave and another guy called Trent, who Dave's doing his MED2 course with, and we're going to get the gearbox apart, and then we're going to get the core out of the heat exchanger so we can get those cleaned up and fixed up. Oh yeah, it's not seized or anything. Trent probably should have just left it alone, but anyway.
Trent, Dave and I spent about half an hour just pulling the gearbox apart. That section coming off now is the valves for selecting gears. The gearbox actually worked quite nicely. It changed gears quite smoothly, wasn't slipping or anything, but it did have water in the oil, and I was worried about bearings sort of failing down the track, so I thought, you know, now's the right time just to get it apart, clean all the emulsified oil out, and change all the bearings in it. The O-rings are a bit hard, you know, sealing washers, just give it a full service essentially. So once we get these out, then I take it over to the press and can start pressing the bearings off. And then I went up to North Shore Bearings and grabbed some replacements for it. These ones came off pretty easily, but the centre shaft or gear shaft, I wasn't sure how that came apart, so I got Jason at the Marine Gearbox Specialist down the road to do that. So when I see him next, I'll actually ask him what the trick was to getting that out, so that, you know, I know if I'm working on this style of gearbox in the future.
Once we had the bearings out, I took them to North Shore Bearings, where John there helped me find some replacements. Then I took the whole lot up to Jason in Mount Coringo. It's just across the road from the workshop actually, and he runs a marine gearbox servicing sort of specialty workshop, and I've given everything to him. I probably could have got it back together, but there's a lot of finer points. Jason's got his own dyno for testing it, pressure testing the oil, setting the end float correctly, getting the, you know, the lash right, all these kinds of things where I think you can get these things together 90%, then you put it out in the boat and you do damage, or you got to pull it out again. So I thought it was well worth having him sort of cast his expert eye over it and reassemble it properly and test it properly. So when we go back and pick that up, I'll take a camera with me so he can film some of what Jason does there as well.
Give it a smack.
I didn't know you knew Morse code. Yeah.
Is that the
Bit of a difference in the anodes. Saltwater side, yeah. Oil cooler.
Get with it. Right, we're going this quarter. Yep. Yeah, we're going to come up here, plus the that's all I'm giving you. Hang on, here we go.
Yeah.
Fuck, what? Just block like a ball one. There's that core.
The inside of the freshwater reservoir of the heat exchanger and where the heat exchanger core goes, it's all pretty manky, so I'll show you inside. My plan is to make up a little bath of caustic soda solution and soak it in for a while and see if it clears it out. So you can see in there, it's pretty gross. Definitely needs cleaning out. So I got here a bit of caustic soda, which is sodium hydroxide, according to the packet. So I'm going to fill this tub up with water. Then I think we'll just slowly dissolve the caustic soda in the water. And I've no idea what a weak or a strong solution is, so I guess we'll just have a go. Might start, I don't know, maybe with about 1 kilo in a tub like this. This is a 100-litre tub. See how it goes. I'll check it tomorrow. Actually, I'll even check it this afternoon before I go. and if it ends up it's doing nothing over the next few days, I'll add some more. Not very scientific, I know, but even when I looked up solutions online, it talked about percentages of concentration. And I guess if I consider maybe 1 litre, 1 kilo to be 1 litre, I don't know if it works that way. Otherwise we could say, yeah, it's about 1% solution, which isn't very strong. I think they were recommending about 3 to 10, so I probably could just put the whole 4 kilos into this 100 litre and be in the ballpark, I think. But I'd rather kind of sneak up on it and be safe rather than sorry. Actually, no, I wouldn't. Let's just chuck it all in. If Archimedes is to be believed, I guess we shouldn't fill it right up, so we can leave some space to put the actual heat exchanger in. If you put it in, you get a little splash in your eye, you know, it's not going to be good. Or your face, I mean, it'll burn regular skin, let alone your eyes, so you have to be very careful. The tub's plastic, so we don't have one of those Breaking Bad dissolving a body moments, although I do have the mask, so, you know. Alright, let's drop this in, see what happens. So, I'll check that again in a few hours, and presuming it's not happening at some ridiculously fast rate, we'll probably end up leaving it for a few days. Alright, well thanks for watching. Next week I'm actually heading up the coast to bring a fishing boat back down to Sydney, down to the Hawkesbury, with Dave Howell, who owned the other timber trawler, so long story, we'll talk about it in that video. So I won't be working on my own boat next week, but we will be getting his boat ready to go to sea and filming the trip coming down the coast as well. Also, I've sold the outboard from the Green Machine, but I have the hull on eBay, so the link for that's in the description. It's just a hull, no motor, no trailer, you know. If you want, just cut the Green Machine thing out of the side and put it on the wall of your workshop if you want it, you know. Make a veggie bed, good for straining pasta, whatever. I think that's got another week to go on that auction. Also, you may notice the audio's a little bit dodgy on this video. It's because the microphone for the camera died, so when the Green Machine sells, I'll buy a new microphone. Alright, well take care, and I'll catch you next week when we bring Dave's new boat down the coast. See ya.